Let's start with a verse, and then I'll run you guys through my old way versus the new way. So this is Galatians 5:16. But I say, walk by the Spirit, and you will not carry out the desire of the flesh. For the flesh sets its desire against the Spirit, and the Spirit against the flesh. For these are in opposition to one another, so that you do not do the things that you want. So, I grew up in Middletown, Ohio. It's between Dayton and Cincinnati. That's why it's called Middletown. I lived in Franklin, but we moved out to Madison, Middletown, which is country. I grew up on a farm. I live with my mom, my dad, my older brother, older sister, younger sister. I had grandparents, but I only knew my grandfather on the father's side and my grandma on my mom's side. Camping, fishing, all that good stuff. Nothing unusual there. We went to a Catholic church in Franklin. They did your usual mass during Christmas, but as a young kid, there was a lot of confusing things going on in that church that she didn't understand. And the singing was in a language I didn't understand. But I would say around 8 or 10, and I'm not going to go into detail of this, but there was some childhood abuse that occurred. And that's when things started to darken for me. I developed insomnia at a young age. I couldn't sleep. You could hit me in the head with a shovel, knock me out, I'm just going to get right back up. There was not much affection between mom and dad at this time. And eventually that led to divorce. And there were some bad things that occurred with my parents. I do remember that very well. So after that, Dad had moved out. Mom, it was just mom, myself, my brother, and my two sisters living in this farmhouse out in Middletown. Not much going on as far as church, nothing like that. Just go to school, go to work, take care of the homestead, that sort of thing. There were some strange men in that period of time. Not very nice people. Not fatherly in the least. And about this time, I developed a learning disability and some dyslexia, not too much, but there were some struggles with school. I hated school. I still hate school. And I was also bullied, but that didn't last very long. I was an angry kid, hateful as heck. And I remember I was probably 13, 14. I started having endless lustful thoughts, just terrible. I was anxious, depressed, and up and down, Jekyll and Hyde. I remember Mom took me to a bunch of shrinks, talked to a lot of different people, all kinds of different drugs, one namely Prozac. I don't know what it did. I don't remember doing anything. So my out was taking care of the homestead. I learned some good landscaping skills. I mowed the grass. We had 10 acres. It took me a full day. But that was my out. I loved it. I still love cutting grass and weed eating and stuff. But let's see, this is probably later teen years now. She's moved on with her current husband, Rick. So it's just me and my little sister. Lots of parties going on. I was always cleaning up the place. So we'll fast forward through all that. I remember distinctly in my later teen years, there's the voice in your head that you hear all day. It changed. A lot of cursing. I didn't like cussing, especially in front of my mom. But inside, man, it was endless. Just loud. If you looked at me wrong, that voice in my head was ready to burn the whole world down. And I sometimes wonder if it was demons chirping. I felt like love was fake. Is this something you use to get something you want? So I didn't really have an understanding. I didn't feel like it was real. Birthdays, holidays, I thought it was all lame. No reason for it. About this time, I was bigger. Late teens, I was bigger. I was hitting back on bullies, and I would hit them hard, man. And I eventually developed. People knew who I was, and they stopped messing with me, but for the wrong reasons. I would fight anybody. Didn't matter. And again, if you looked at me wrong, we were going to have a conversation. I started shooting animals. I just didn't care. I had crude and vile jokes. I was cynical, sadistic. No empathy. Suicidal thoughts. Total nihilist. I liked living in the darkness. I lived in the basement. I liked it down there. It's like a cave. Very little light, which was a reflection of what was going on inside. Heavy metal, death metal. I was in a band, sort of. I was very good on guitar. I wasn't a guitarist, but I was pretty good. And we tried to start up a band in Middletown, but it didn't take off. And I'm glad it didn't, because that was a rough crowd. I liked violent and explicit movies. I didn't want to watch anything else. I had a desire to collect very weird, strange, and dark objects. Particularly, it was a Grim Reaper, and he had two skulls holding up. And you pour water in the thing, it had a little pump. You dye it red, and it looked like blood coming out of the skulls. I was so proud of that thing. People come down in the basement, I'm like, hey, look at this thing. I thought church and religion was dumb. All religion was stupid. I remember going into Mom's church when she forced me to. I think it was a Methodist church in Monroe. And at the end of the service, they would stand in a circle and hold hands. And they would say one last prayer. And at the end of that prayer, I remember, I was 17. Just flat out telling everybody, I think you're all stupid. And I'm just the terror on my mom's face. I thought Christians were annoying. And I'd say around this time, there was some weird stuff going on inside that farmhouse. Paranormal. And if you guys ever want to get into that, I'll be happy to talk to you about it. But it's wild, wild stuff. And not good. Very demonic. So I turned 18, and my old man and my grandpa was in the Battle of the Bulge. He was on the 6th day of Normandy. He traded packs of cigarettes for watches with the Red Army. So I had a lot of respect for my grandpa. He didn't say too much. He was if something needs said, he'd say it, but you're not going to get an I love you or nothing out of him. And I think that war, especially the Battle of the Bulge, after I learned some things from him, it affected him. But I love my grandpa, man. He was bad at the bone. And I tried to get into the Army, the Rangers, the Air Force. None of them would take me because I took Prozac 10 years earlier. So I'm like, oh, okay. So that was a little bit of a rejection because I wanted to pick up with where they left off, my old man and my grandpa. And Dad, he was in the Air Force. He was in Okinawa. He worked on the SR-71. So I had a lot of addictions at the time. I had a lot of relationships with women, if you could call them that. I never wanted kids. I spent endless money on beer and cigars and music CDs and terrible movies and computer games and cars and car audio. Just blew everything I had on absolutely nothing. I had no real care for the future. and I still struggle with this today. Recalling, I have a habit of recalling bad events. So if you ask me, did you do anything fun over the weekend? I'm like, I don't know. I can't remember much in my childhood being good, and I think it's just a block, But I'm bringing all this together because I was a lost, hateful wreck of a man. And you're probably wondering who you're talking to right now. But I was terrible. So let's fast forward, and I'm kind of wrapping up my lost nature here. I got a job at GE as an IT guy. I eventually landed the job that I have now. My bosses were very narcissistic, and I was extremely cynical of people. I thought everybody, the only purpose that they had for talking to me was because they wanted something. And I hated when people came up to me and said, "Hey, how was your weekend?" I'm like, "Why do you care? Just tell me what you want." And I was very hypersensitive to positivity. Because my whole life, if you go back and look, when you're a struggling teenager and all people say to you is, "Oh, it's worse somewhere else. Oh, you'll grow up out of it. Oh," it's just kind of like they blow you off. They don't really address the reason why you're suffering. It's like, it's no big deal. You're just being an idiot. And you're like, "Gee, thanks." But I lost my grandpa. I lost my best friend, and he was a one good friend because you only have a couple that will tell you things you don't want to hear, right? He was a good man. I'm highly introverted, and I used to be, especially when I play guitar, I liked to be around people, but then it changed. The more people I was around, the less energy I had. It's like I had to crawl out of the place. So, all this is going on. I'm in my low 20s, and I just felt like I was bouncing through life like a ping pong ball. No real direction, just whatever happened, whatever. Ride the wave, it'll be fine. And I remember distinctly a comment my grandpa made before he passed, and it was directed at me. And remember, I told you, he will, when he needs to say something, he's going to say it. And that comment was, "Boy, your priorities are a hell of a lot different than mine." And it blew me up. Because I wanted to be like Grandpa, And that was a check, He hit me across the head with a shovel, and it kind of jarred me. And I need to reevaluate things. But I was still godless at the time, so I was trying to get my life right, but without God, and it wasn't going very well. And then I met this beautiful woman right here, sitting at a cube at GE Capital in Kettering, and she thought I looked like a Nazi. Because I didn't smile a whole lot. For some reason, she saw something in me, and then these two youngins back here, Kira and Kyrick, changed my world. So I didn't have much regard for my life. I didn't really care if I walked out in the street and got hit by a car. I didn't care. But those two I care about. This one I care about. I had a reason to live. And it wasn't long after they were born. GE Capital was pushing flu shots. I'm not pro-vax, I'm not anti-vax. Don't get the vax if it's going to hurt you kind of guy. And it hurt me bad. I got a illness called Guillain-Barré syndrome. Now, thank the good Lord, it was a moderate case, and there's actually a blessing behind this, because I don't know if I'd be up here with y'all loving the Lord if it wasn't for that. Because that I'm not kidding you, put me on my knees. Grown man who was just a hard case on his knees saying, Jesus, I don't know what to do. I got nothing left. I feel sick inside. I need some help. And the Guillain-Barré syndrome, I started going numb in the tips of my fingers and toes, and it spread down in my cheeks, on the back of my neck. I was paralyzed, but it stopped. It stopped. Thank God it stopped, because people with GBS, some end up on a ventilator because they're completely shut down. And what happens is your body targets what's called the myelin around your nerve endings, or your nerves. It's like ripping the cable shield off of a piece of wire. So you got all this bare wire for nerves, the signals are going nowhere. That's what happens. And I got panic attacks, and then you guys will have to help me, but there's a verse, an endless pit. I swear it feels like you're falling forever, right through the bed. You're just falling. It's craziness. And I felt like I was dying. And I was scared to die. And I remember when I got on my knees, I was crying. And I don't cry. I'm too much of a man to cry, And I'm like, what is this coming out of my eye sockets? And it's just like a plea to the Lord saying, I got nothing. You're going to have to help me here. And, I worked through the GBS. It took about a year to recover. I'm still not right. And the blessing behind this was playing guitar was my stumbling block. I wanted to be famous. I wanted to be a rock star, do all that crazy stuff that goes on in the music industry. But I couldn't anymore. I cannot play that well. I could still pick up that guitar and play, but within 5 minutes, my hand's done. Especially right here. If I do this, within about a minute, I can't do it anymore because those muscles are gone. That's just one example. So the Lord took that from me, I think, to put me on a better path. And I'm glad He did it. My guitars hang on the wall, and they collect dust. And that's where they need to be, really. And I'm fine with that, totally fine. My taste in music changed. I didn't really like, when it comes to music, and after the Lord plucked me up out of I started hearing the blasphemy in the songs I listened to. I didn't hear that before, but I heard it. And it turned me off. I said, I don't want to listen to this anymore. So I threw those CDs out. Movies and all that crap I watched with endless cursing and you name it going on, threw them out. That Grim Reaper, I threw it out. All those cursive objects that I had, it was all kinds of weird stuff I had in the trash. Folks at work that I used to go out and party with, that I no longer did, said I was different and boring. Now that's a plus. And then I started watching on YouTube endless lectures from folks like, and I know he's got things going on with him, but Ravi Zacharias, Ray Comfort, Kent Hovind, Peter Ruckman, if you know any of those names. And I got a hold of, because I don't like reading too much, because I burn out real easy, so I like to listen to the Bible. Now, I have read through the Bible 3 times. But I like listening to Alexander Scorby. Man, that guy's got a voice. So I listen to that a lot. But I was a new babe, I didn't have my direction like I do today. Man, I was KJV only. If you didn't have that book, I didn't want anything to do with you. Because they make a good case against the other translations, but once you study a little bit, it's a little much. And I wouldn't say I was hateful, but I did have a problem with other denominations. And then comes the Mormons and the Jehovah's Witnesses coming to my door down at our house now. The Jehovah's Witnesses, they showed up about 10 times. And remember, I don't know that much at this time. I know He's Lord, but I didn't know how to navigate the terrain there. And they would come, they would give me literature, and it looked right to me. I didn't know. But my buddy said, take that cross and put it out on your front porch and then show it to them the next time they come. I was like, all right. They came, they saw the cross, they read a verse, and they left. I haven't seen them since. I don't know what it is about the cross that they don't like. But the Mormons were persistent. I could have done a better job with those very nice ladies. But every time they returned, every time I questioned them, and I had lots of questions, not that I knew what I was talking about, I just had questions. Every time I asked them a bunch of things, the next time they came, they would come with a more advanced elder from their church. And the very last time they came to my house, and they haven't returned in many years, they said, that lady said, you need to stop researching on the internet. The internet's bad. And she was hot with me. She was not happy. And that was it. That's the last time I saw them. So I guess they put me in their black book. But, and again, I was still new, right? Lots of questions. Some things were confusing. And I started listening to James White and Paul Washer. Big time Calvinist. I'm not saying anything bad. But it was holding myself to that standard. I started questioning my salvation. Because I was like, I can't do this. I am totally screwed. But these guys can, so I guess I'm not saved. And so I was out for Mr. Perfect Preacher. And let me tell you something. If you're a new Christian and you're a hillbilly like I am, your tendency to get caught up in a cult is very, very easy. And there is a cult, and they're not local, called the Path of Truth. And again, they look like they said all the right things. And on their website, they had an article for every single preacher I think you all could write down in a notebook. The guy had, he was the only guy on earth with divine revelation. He had a problem with everybody. And I'm talking like 10 pages of blog posts problem. And this poor lady that I was talking to in the chat room with these folks, she gave up her parents, her siblings, her house, all the crosses that she had in her house, the Jesus fish on the back of her car, because this guy said, those are cursed, you're not allowed to do that, no images whatsoever. And she left everybody to go be with this cult. And I think they're somewhere in Israel right now. But I was that close. And my mind was like, man, there's something not right here. Like the Calvinists, there's something not right. it's not all the way there and it doesn't feel right. So now I am really confused. I'm angry. I'm questioning everything again. And I'm crying again. I'm like, Lord, I don't know what to do. Please help me. You've heard me say that before. And he did. He did. He led me to this fella named Pastor Yankee Arnold. And he's retired now, but he had a church in Tampa called Calvary Community Church. I don't think they're related to us here. But he was your good old Southern boy, straightforward, direct preaching. Kind of reminded me of my grandpa, because I like that, man. I don't want sugarcoating. Don't give me the whipped cream. Give me the meat. Let me chew on it. And just his delivery woke me up. And the sermon I landed on was about Calvinism. And the way Yankee described that whole thing, and then he went into the two natures, I think that saved me. I don't mean that in the way that you think it out. I was lost, I was for the Lord, but I was out in the weeds. And it just brought me back, focused all on the Lord. Because Jesus is the way, not your works. You know? So I was listening to him, and then I landed on Dr. Michael Heiser. And he had a 5-minute little thing, and he said, when you get saved and you're new, that God is not going to zap you and turn you into a perfect Christian overnight. You got to work at it. You got to fight that old man. And that old man of mine was not good. And the spiritual side of me, now saved through Jesus, it was weak. So it was a battle, man, just beating that old man down. I fought hard. And the pull to go back to where you were, that can be severe. And it doesn't go away. Like Dr. Michael Heiser said, you're not going to get zapped. You're going to have to fight. You're going to have to lean on the Lord. Because he's the one that got me out of this mess. I can't do it on my own. I didn't do it on my own up till 22. How am I going to do it now without him? I started praying better. So I remember back in the Catholic Church, there was like this whole thing that went into praying, and now I just talk to him like I'm talking to y'all. And that's that. Because I felt like you had to be perfect in your words. You had to use big fancy words, which I don't have. I just talked to him. Honestly, Lord, I need help. Lord, these bosses at work, I'm about to throw them through a window. Calm me down, please. Help me deal with them. Lord, my kids they're on their devices too much. Help me help them. Bring them to you. Just anything and everything I went to the Lord for. I no longer trusted that old man. Even my old man at Thanksgiving, he wants me to pray at the dinner table. He says I do a good job. The Holy Spirit does a good job there. I started giving. My job is not the greatest. There's some days I have no energy to come to the dinner table. I work with clients on their IT point-of-sale systems, and they never are satisfied with anything, so it can be draining. But I sit down and I just say, Lord, give me strength. Lord, help me be a good husband and my beautiful wife. Help me be a good father. Help me be a good brother. I witnessed to my sister. And I told you guys, I'm not a lot of vocabulary up here, but the Spirit spoke through me to my sister. And the words I used, it's like, it's not like God doesn't treat you like a remote control machine. You just feel him inside saying, go this way. Say it this way. And it reached her. It reached her. And she needed that, especially from her crazy brother. I was able to discern things I didn't before. I can't watch mainstream media anymore. Just discerning the world's lies. There's something in you that's telling you there's something not right about what that person's saying. And it has saved me. It saved me at work. It has saved me with some friends. It has saved me from getting caught up in things that I shouldn't because they use all the right words and buzzwords to lure you in, you know? He helps you see that stuff. And I'll tell you guys that I may not be the most studied. I may not be able to recall Scripture word for word. But my faith, man, fills those holes. The Lord could say, Seth, I want you to take this hammer and chisel and move that giant mountain. I said, all right, I'm on it, Lord. Give me the strength. Let's go. I'll do it. And I would tell you that I didn't just do a 180 from where I was with the old man versus the new. I'm like 70 times 70 miles the opposite direction. And that's all because of Jesus. For whatever reason. And we know the reason. He saw this wreck and said, you're worth saving, bud. Come with me. And the blessings that I have with Radine, the kids, I don't deserve this at all. I don't deserve any of the good things that I've gotten. The Lord said, no, you do. You're healed now. You're washed clean. Not of my own doing, but His. So that's why when I came to that revelation of the two natures, if you're a young Christian and you're hurting and you don't understand that the struggles aren't going to magically go away overnight, and they're not going to magically go away the next week, I wish more folks had that, because I feel like it's easy to backslide if you're running on an obstacle and you just don't know that that struggle is going to continue. But it gets easier, because the more you build up the spiritual man, the more you can pound down the old guy, you know? This went much quicker than it did. But I wanted to say that finding this place, because we watched Pastor Yankee Arnold on YouTube every Sunday, and whenever we could, but I'm just really thankful that I typed in Calvary Church, Dayton, Ohio, and I found you good folks, and Pastor Luke, and Pastor Riley, Pastor Frenchie, David, Megan, Savannah, Marilyn, Scott. You guys are such a blessing, and you've helped me mature, and you You led Radine and I to marriage because we came from broken homes and it just wasn't important to us, and now it's the most important thing in the world. Just a massive blessing to us. Being in unity and with the Lord. The baptism. Man, the church body here, you guys are just amazing. And I really appreciate all of you. More than you can imagine. And I just want to leave y'all with this verse. For those who are according to the flesh set their minds on the things of the flesh, but those who are according to the Spirit, things of the Spirit. So keep pounding on that old man. Don't let him win. You got the Lord fighting with you. Nothing can be against you. Beat the old man down and keep him down. And Radine said that I don't smile since we got married. And she's the one who wanted a serious relationship. Love you guys.